To fix this tripod, I ended up just removing that ball and socket joint altogether. Then I found a nice long screw and just ran it right down the middle. It's probably not the most elegant solution, but it ended up working, so that's all I need. The next project for us to work on is we got this old holster here. I've had it for a real long time, but it's held up pretty well, so it's apparently well made. But the problem is the latch on it has just got Velcro on it, and I've never really liked it because it's, for one, it's too noisy. For two, the loop section of this is, I mean, it's almost 20 years old now, so it's probably more than that. But they're getting pretty worn out, so it doesn't latch that well. And my idea was to upgrade this. I think I'm going to turn it into a thigh holster. But I'm going to replace this strap with a snap fastener that rests above the grip, which you can just undo with your thumb and make it a little bit more quick draw. I mean, this isn't very fast. You gotta unlatch it and then draw your weapon. I think I'm gonna make this compatible for a 1911. I don't have a 1911 though. What I do have is this old spring airsoft gun that's made to look like a MEU pistol, but that's realistic enough to where when I set up the strap with the snap fastener to secure it in place, that should be a good stand-in. But in order to do this, I've got all this 1.5" strap that I think I'm going to use. I pulled this off of various duffel bags and whatnot. I've got some strap sliders on these. I got a nice large buckle. I think that's going to end up going around the thigh. And I got a few other plastic pieces here we'll make use of. So stay tuned and we'll get started on that. The first thing I'm going to do for this mod is I'm going to cut through all the stitching down the center of this holster, and I'm also going to remove these belt loops. I usually just use my pocket knife for this sort of thing, but should the need arise, I've also got a stitch ripper handy. And now that we got that out of the way, should make doing all the stitching on this mod a lot easier, because we got easy access to whatever part of the holster we need. And then I'll just stitch that center seam back up last. For now, I'll just clean this up by pulling some of these stitches out of here. That's where a stitch ripper really comes in handy. I can see this liner is pretty torn up, so I think I'm going to go ahead and try and replace it. I've got a large patch of this nylon material out of a cheap bag. I'm going to go ahead and try and replace it with that. So I'll just kind of trace a pattern to match up with that holster, and I'll just go ahead and replace that liner. In order to replace that liner, it looks like I'm just going to have to slowly go through the outer edge and cut through all this stitching. We can just get started here. Should be able to get things moving. Probably the outside. We'll try getting started on the outside. That might be a little easier. Now that we got going on this, should go a little smoother from here. All we really have to do is keep pulling this material off and then just cut every couple of stitches. You don't have to cut every single stitch. So I'm done pulling this material off the edge of this holster. I'd like to be able to sew on a fresh piece of that, but unfortunately I just don't have any of this stuff available. I might use some wider, thicker nylon strapping instead, but I haven't really decided yet. This stuff's not in that bad a shape. It's got a few little frayed spots here and there, but I think I'll just pick the threading out of that the best I can and clean it up with a lighter, and I may just end up reusing this same piece. So my next step will be to pull this lining off. It's not really something I'm going to try and salvage, so I don't really care what condition it ends up in, as long as I don't do too much damage to the outer part of this holster. That nylon's still in really good condition, so I don't want to have to replace that. But it looks like the same stitching's holding on both sides, but I think there's some sort of fabric glue holding on this nylon to the outer piece, to the outer side of this. So I'll just go ahead and rip through that stitching. And then once I'm done doing that, I'll replace it with this bit of nylon here. Alright, we got that out of the way. I just want to pull some of this threading out, clean this up really good. Okay, so we had a change of plan there. Midway through, originally this was supposed to be a simple mod. I was just going to take this holster and turn it into a thigh holster, but when we decided to remove this felt lining, things got a lot more involved. Now I'm deciding to use this ripstop material as a lining, and we're still going to use this original piece of nylon on the outer part. And then I'm going to reuse this strap material on the edge, but I've decided to use a little bit of super glue as a sort of fabric adhesive in a few spots just to hold the material on there while I get all the stitching done. So we'll probably just try a little bit here and there. I don't want to use too much. The point is to just hold it in place.